Talk. I'm your girl D. Co-hosting today's show, we have on my left TK, on my right we have Meg B and Zanik. On our show today we have a very special guest, Abdullah Jata, a fourth year medical student all the way from Gambia. A man passionate about poetry, politics, philosophy and religion. Welcome to our show, Abdullah.
Thank you, it's a pleasure to be here.
Today's topic is morality. Morality being the recognition between what is right and what is wrong. But our fundamental question for the day is morality objective or can it be subjective? What is your take on this, TK?
Well, personally, this is such a huge topic and we all go through this question every day of our lives. I personally think that morality is subjective. Simply because that we as human beings, we are composed of systems, from our homes, our communities, our society as a whole. And all these systems come up with rules and regulation in terms of how we should live and how we shouldn't live. So each system that we are embedded in has its own way of saying that this is the truth and this is how things should be. So for me, well, it's subjective. I don't know, you guys, what do you guys think?
Well, I would actually say that, firstly, I would just like to recognize the complexity of the topic. It is complex and it is also controversial, like you have, already iterated in terms of the system which we live in. But then when you look in moral subjectivism, the subjectivity of the moral is that it is dependent of an individual, is that the person decides that this is right and this is wrong. And this really, it responds to a society that as a society we then, each and every one of us has that privilege to do so. And moral objectivism, the objective thought or idea of morality is that morality exists independent from what? From the individual. That it has existed before the person, it exists with the person, and it will still exist without the person.
Well, to me, like you guys both said, it's a really complex topic, and I feel like we can never really reach a conclusion because we've seen that the two actually do kind of clash. When we look at morality, I think it's one of the things that makes us human beings unique because like interacting with different people, we get to see that we have different beliefs and principles that we try to uphold. When I look at morals, I see it as our own individualized personal set of code of what's right and wrong. But as an individual, we decide what is right or wrong based on our own cultural beliefs. So I would say it's subjective because we decide what's right or wrong based on certain normal views or moral judgment based in the society in which it is practiced.
Well, I think the fundamental genesis of all these things needs to be at the grassroots level first. We need to define our terms here. By which I mean, what do we mean by truth after all? Truth, I will have to go in line with what Aristotle, the common sense philosopher himself, the way he actually defined it, and I believe we are all supposed to agree with him on this. He said truth is saying what is that it is, and saying of what is not that is not. So basically it's what is. It's not how we come to know these things, but what is the thing that we actually know. So because by going in line with what is known as how we come to know these things, basically we're getting into the genetic fallacy, which I don't want to get into. So that's truth, by the way. So then you go into the other part of the same, phraseology. That is objective. What do we mean by objective? In objective truth, we mean independent of the knower or his consciousness. So basically, that does, to me, there is entire debatable issue as to because society has its own rules and regulations here and there, negate or can argue away objective truth. To me, it doesn't hold. Why? Because there is a difference between what we term as morality and what we term as sociology, right? Morality is like my African woman, beautiful African woman here has just defined for us, is true. What is true, right, and wrong? You see my point? So it's actually independent of societal, conventions. You see my point? So by which I mean, society could have different attitudes towards what they term as fact or truth, but it doesn't argue away the fact that there is no moral truth after all. So let me give you a typical example. To murder someone is actually very, very immoral. All right? That's a moral, objective truth that we all hold. Yeah. But look at people like Hitler, for example. He murdered people, and to him that's normal. That's nothing that negates the fact that moral objectivity actually exists. To him, he holds that it doesn't, because that is his truth. But guess what he did? He had to, what I call, amalgamate this entire system into his own people. That is the SS, his group, that were responsible for killing millions of Jews. By telling them that those people, the Jews that they were killing, are subhuman creatures. So he had to redefine the truth itself to make a way, or to create a pathway for him to go against that moral ground. You see my point? So in order for us to stand up and say, well, society is responsible. Obviously, society might be responsible for a lot of things, such as training us how to have decent human behavior. But that doesn't go, in any way, shape, or form to argue away that moral absolute truths or objective truths actually exist. Just like in the same way that society is responsible to teach us the multiplication table, but that doesn't argue away, or that doesn't go to say that society is responsible for mathematics. Is it? I'm standing here.
I get what you're saying. But I still.
This is what I mean. Society can teach us a wild lot of things: how to walk on the street, how to do this, how to eat, how to behave normally within the society, as a group of human beings. But those things are actually things that are modifiable. You see my point? But when we talk about objective moral truths, these things are not modifiable. I don't know if you get my point. These things come to us just like the mathematics table. Like the analogy I like given is mathematics table. I mean the multiplication table, not the mathematics table. I suck at mathematics, so don't blame me for that. So the multiplication table. Yeah. So this multiplication table, society instills us into us. Okay, this is 1 times 1 is this, 2 times 2 is that. But you won't see anybody else standing on the street of Bathurst and saying, okay, 1 times 1 is 0.
Yeah.
So I don't negate the fact that society can train us. But that doesn't go away. That's a genetic fallacy to say because society trains us on moral absolute truth, so because those things come from society, that means they don't exist. I don't know if you guys get my point here.
We get your point.
Don't you think that morals can evolve with time?
Yeah.
And in different places where
going back to my original.
For example, slavery. Back then it wasn't seen as immoral.
Exactly. Going back to my point, you had to redefine what we mean by truth for you to reach that conclusion. I just give a typical example of the Nazis killing other people, because first they had to dehumanize those ones. The cannibalism. To commit cannibalism, you have to redefine what humanity is, what a human being is, for you to do that. No cannibal on the street says said back in the days, okay, I'm eating this human being because it's a human being. No. They have to redefine that human being outside the box. Yeah. So you have to redefine what you mean by truth first for you to be able to go against that very absolute truth.
But that exact justification for you killing those people, doesn't that discount the entire fact that morality is absolute thing?
Yeah, me negating something does not necessarily mean that particular thing doesn't exist. Just like in the same way I could say 1 times 1 equals to 0, but that doesn't negate the fact that the multiplication table doesn't exist.
But for me, personally, I feel like, well, we're talking about the truth and talking about moral absolutism, that they somehow seem to be same things, but I have to argue this out. You mentioned truth and you say, I'm going to say something is true, I'm going to give an example of somebody who came up with the definition of something, right? Mm-hmm. That thing can be true, but is that thing morally right or wrong? No matter whether, we say somebody came up with what is mango? Mango is a type of fruit, That is true. This is mango. You cannot argue that away. It is absolutely true. It's a mango because somebody defined it as mango, and if you're going to use it as mango, we expect to see that. That is the truth. Unless you come up with your own definition of this thing, and that is still be the truth of the definition of mango, right? But coming back to moral absolutism, which states that you have to know what is right and what is wrong intrinsically in you. No matter the conditions, this is absolutely wrong and this is absolutely right. That doesn't seem to make sense at all. Because if you say matter, like how you've given in your examples, you say matter is one of those concepts that are absolutely wrong. And I want to bring this.
Well, let me not put it that way. If you use when we have a shift in sentiments here or words, I think we'll get ourselves into trouble. Because murder, I could murder someone who comes to my house just to be a jihadist.
Yeah.
Has a jihadist vest on him and wants to kill me. I could murder the person.
And that's absolutely
because on self-defense, I could do that on grounds of self-defense. That is not absolutely wrong. It's objectively wrong to kill someone. But it's not absolutely wrong all the time to kill somebody.
Okay,
so that's why we have to be, a little bit careful with the words.
So I'm saying let's go back to our main topics: moral absolutism and moral subjectivism. That's what we really
moral objectivism and moral subjectivism. Moral absolutism and moral relativism.
Moral relativism and moral absolutism, right? Which we're saying moral absolutism is the one that states that you knowing what is right or what is wrong is intrinsically embedded in you.
Well, just in the same way that it is intrinsically embedded in all of us to see this book right here, but that doesn't argue away the fact that there may be one or two people down on the street of Havana who cannot see these two books. So when we say moral objectivism here, we're not saying it is intrinsically embedded in each and every soul. No.
So how is it acquired then, this moral knowledge, intrinsic moral knowledge?
These things exist, but whether we know them as individuals, no, when I say we, I'm generalizing the entire system of belief here. But when I say there might be one or two odd individuals down on the street who commit them, and then we base that on the fact that, okay, those people they have not come in terms, into agreement with those ones. That do not negate the fact that they exist. It's not a democracy. It's not that everybody must abide by that. The very fact that we have moral objectivism, truth as objective. We mean truth actually exists independent of us as human beings. They exist, whether we see it or not.
But is it morally right or wrong? Who makes these rules? That's what I'm saying. Can I just jump to my two subtopics, being moral absolutism and moral relativism? And you believe in moral absolutism. And I say, I believe in moral relativism, where I feel that, just like my other fellow host, my co-host, I feel that morality, it is relative, considering factors like culture, your customs, your geographic location, and all that. Whereas moral absolutism states that cannot be the case, because you have to know what is right and what is wrong intrinsically, and there are those morals that are absolutely wrong, and there are those morals that are absolutely right. And I gave as an example murder as one of those morals that are considered to be absolutely wrong, right? So I'm going to use murder and stealing, and I want to ask you this: stealing a nuclear bomb that was going to be used to destroy the whole of Gambia. Then you manage to steal it out of that factory. Since you believe in moral absolutism, so it doesn't matter the condition or the situation. That is always going to be wrong. Is it wrong that you stole that nuclear bomb that was going to destroy the whole city? What makes this wrong? Who determines this as a morally wrong or morally incorrect act? You saving your whole city from taking away the bomb.
By stealing the bomb.
Yeah. By
stealing the bomb. What have I really committed that is wrong in this?
You stole the bomb. It doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the people who
but it belongs to something that has a consequence of murdering people. What is right in that?
Let's focus on stealing. You stole a bomb, which is
a means to an end.
Which is absolutely wrong.
Yeah.
But you stole a bomb to save your whole country. How is that morally wrong?
absolutely morally right for me to do so if I have an opportunity to steal from someone
stealing
who
can
has
be right.
who has a nuclear bomb to bomb my entire little Gambia. I'll have to steal it if I have the opportunity. But that doesn't negate the fact that that is morally wrong for me to do so, because if that is to follow, if I'm to put my shoe in that particular box, that means you have to tell me one single thing that is right in that particular act itself. What is right in that? Killing millions of people because...
So it's actually conditioned. In this case, it's situational. Just like when I have somebody who comes into my room with a jihadist bomb, vest on him and wants to kill my entire family. That's on self-defense. So that doesn't.
That goes to situation.
Not always. Look.
Give him a chance.
You guys are. I think what we're trying to do here is mixing up two words that are concepts that do not always fall into the same box: absolutism and objectivism. When I say objectivism, we mean it's independent of the knower, right? As you as a human being, it's independent of you. Whether you guys, we've already talked about society, how society influences, and I came up with the analogy of the multiplication table and so forth. So, but when you talk about absolutism in this case, we don't actually mean that, okay, in a situation like this, you should not have to commit it. Because you committing it means that there is something positive in what you are doing. But it's not. There's nothing positive in allowing somebody who has a nuclear bomb to bomb an entire Lesotho or Gambia.
So, sorry to interrupt you guys. So what I'm actually really gathering here as well is that there's an element whereby this whole topic, it shows us an area of gray, that it is not necessarily a black and white topic, because with the examples that you had given of a bomb and the stealing, because with moral objectivism is that stealing is wrong and will always remain wrong, because it being wrong does not depend on an individual and their motive. And then you find the subjectivism, which then goes further to then say that the ends in this instance has justified the means. I'm not sure if maybe from what I'm actually catching.
I get your point. I get his point. The fact of the matter is, moral objectivism and moral subjectivism all drains down to one thing, which is that what we ought to do. Yeah, what we ought to do. Subjectivists tell us what we ought to do. It depends on your preferences. And objectivist tells you what we ought to do. We ought to do. This is where the imbalance comes into play.
So you're right after this.
Stand a chance to win 1 gigabyte of mobile data by answering this simple question. When was the first edition of Lavista magazine released? All you have to do to qualify is to go on our Facebook page, comment your answer, like and share the video. The winner will be announced on the next Lavista Talk episode through a lucky draw. Good luck.
Welcome back. We're still on about moral absolutism and moral relativism. TK, actually, you wanted to say something before we went on a break.
Yeah, the thing is, guys, here are two born babies today, right? I'm gonna give a simple example with a cartoon, an animation, Tarzan, right? Tarzan was a kid that grew up with baboons and basically had a lifestyle of baboons, right? So here are two kids. They are both born this way. This child, you take them into the real world, the industrialized world, where we are from. And then the other child is like Tarzan, who goes live with baboons. Now, when these kids grow up and they learn and they consume everything that the society gives them, they're not going to see things in the same eye. You understand? Perhaps Tarzan, living in a jungle, will see killing and slaughtering as a normal thing because that's the society that he grew in. And then an industrialized child will see that as something that is wrong because he's been taught that killing is wrong. Now, in this case, how is that morality is absolute, or how is it relative according to you? How would you see it?
To me, the very fact that we call it moral objectivism means that it has got nothing to do with societal, or human convention.
Okay.
Going back to my original point, it's a genetic fallacy to say because we've learned some of these things in our, through societal influence or whatsoever it is, that make them non-existent. It's either two things, that they exist and the way we acquire them make them subjective, or that they exist and the way we acquire them is just a normal routine by which God had intended that we come to knowledge of those things. So if it is are you going for the former or the latter here? Do you believe that moral objective truth actually exists, and because of the way we know them, that's how it makes them subjective, or actually because of the way we know them, that's what makes them subjective?
I think it is subjective in this particular matter.
In this particular matter?
Yeah, because there are two kids born from different systems, and the way they see things are differently. So it is relative to what they've been exposed to. So in my case, in this particular one,
a typical example would be rape. There is nowhere where Tarzan would rape somebody. By natural consciousness or instinct or herd instinct, you know that this is wrong.
How do we know that Tarzan would never rape?
Because this is it's not something that is dependent of us. This is something that is independent of human consciousness. So there is no way. What kind of human beings
people rape without feeling?
No, of course, those people, those are the old people. I call this thing not a democracy in any shape or form. It's not a democracy simply because not everybody will come to abide by them. When we talk about moral objective truths, we mean what human beings ought to do. Whether they do it or not is another situation. But what they ought to do, we all hold that with us. We cannot compare, for example, the Nazis to our today's morality. Can you? I mean,
That's why I stand to be corrected here. Morality evolves.
Okay, let me get this straight. Can we compare the Nazi morality to our today's morality? Can we?
No.
So that means there must.
Subjective.
No, that means there is a standard for which we are making our reference, and that standard must remain intact.
Which standard is that, and who makes it?
I don't know. You tell me, because I'm asking as to whether we can compare these two moralities. Which one is better?
Who knows?
It's today's morality. That means we are using a reference or a standard here. What is that standard? Is it dynamic? If it is dynamic, that means we have not said anything correctly.
But it is.
Is it dynamic? That standard that we are using to compare the Nazi morality to our today's morality, is it dynamic? Can it be changed? Is it relative?
But is it not that you can actually compare the two? That the fact that with moral objectivism you can actually compare the two, that what he did was immoral, even though he had actually redefined what to him morality meant. To him, morality meant that if you are not a pure, white, blonde, blue-eyed person, then you are not human. You understand? But then the morality in that sense, there were people actually doing what? Challenging his idea of morality, because even at that same time, at that same point in time, there were people who had a different view of morality. That morality says that if you are a human being, you cannot be slaughtered like an
exactly.
animal.
Even his own SS, even his own.
The way of seeing life, the moral views, are we going to say they're wrong, even though they intrinsically feel right about them?
No, it's got nothing to do with our desires. That's the fact.
But we say for it to be absolute, it has to be intrinsically built in you. But it is not in them. They do not see the moral views as we see them.
Like I said.
How is that? How can it?
Like I said, it does not necessarily have to be a nerd instinct in each and every soul. That makes it non-democratic. It's not a democracy.
And it makes it subjective.
No, that doesn't argue away the fact that somebody who does not know 2 times 2 equals to what?
Obviously.
Like I said in the beginning, I have no idea what mathematics is all about. 2 times 2 is what? 4. Who in their right mind says 2 times 2 equals 0? Whether they know it or not. Whether they are in a societal society or not. So when you talk about moral
absolutism.
Yeah, because it's a truth. A truth by, like I said in the beginning of Aristotle, is saying what it is that it is, and saying what it is not and that is not. So when we say 2 times 2 is this, what is? Truth is what is. So whether there are certain people or individuals down on the street of Havana or Lesotho or South Africa who don't believe in this, does not negate the fact that the truth itself does not exist. It does exist. Our response to it is another situation, which makes it sociology in this case, which is not morality, by the way. I made that clear.
But I keep bringing you back to this, like, truth does exist. If we say Mandarin is killing someone or taking somebody's life away, that is murder, or that is murder. That is true, right? Because that's the definition of murder. Or you're gonna argue away the definition of murder.
Yeah, killing somebody, yeah.
Is murder. That is true. But I feel like that is different from what we're talking about. We're talking, is this morally right or wrong? Who knows what? Is it absolutely right or is it absolutely wrong to murder? Whether it is absolute truth or not. Can we focus on like moral absolutism of murder and not the definition or the truth of what murder is?
But then,
For example, moral judgments, they don't have any absolute truth.
Moral
any
objective judgments
truth,
are
right?
independent, yeah.
So how do we actually go about deciding that someone is wrong or right?
All right.
How can we actually
No.
do we
By
go
a standard.
on justification
Yes.
based on the majority?
By the standard, a standard which goes beyond us, that comes from a mind. And if we go into that, we go to the Genesis, and that goes takes us to what? To a supreme being called God. So we rather have to establish the fact that they do exist, all right? But God is not the one responsible for it, but we are, which makes this entire debate useless. Or we actually believe that they do exist and they come from a mind.
So because we can't question God, that makes it objective.
Not necessarily. There are mad people who question, or murderers out there who question the veracity of whether it's actually right or wrong to murder someone. So our questioning of it doesn't negate the fact that they do exist. We see, when we talk about objective moral truths here, we're talking about what we as human beings ought to do. All right, whether we do them or not, that's another situation. Because, like I said in the beginning, human beings can come up with different excuses not to carry out the very things that are expected of them. But that do not, in any shape or form, negate the fact that what they ought to do actually exists. I'm going back to my previous, presupposition here. Comparing the Nazis to that of our civilization today, which morality is better for you guys? When we say it is ours, that is better, that means we are going in for a standard here. And what's that standard? Do you believe those people should know those standards? Yes, you do. Yeah. I'm here to be corrected, so.
Yeah. But for me, still arguing away moral absolutism,
Moral subjectivism is self-contradictory.
That's what you believe, and
It
that
is
is actually,
self-contradictory.
can I say something? Yeah. So I wanted to give this example actually because you already brought up God or the genesis of what we have to,
What we ought to do.
or what we ought to do,
Whether we do it or not. Yeah.
And you say this is a God to you, somebody supreme.
This is a prompting from a supreme being called mind or God. Yes.
And this person, can this person be wrong or right? Can he be?
He is always right.
He's always right.
Yes.
Thank you for bringing that actually, because if we say he's always right, you come back to the concept of moral absolutism. Where we say under any condition, if this is morally wrong, it can never be justified as right, no matter the situation, right?
Not always.
But moral absolutism says it is always wrong, no matter the condition. Absolutely wrong.
Yeah, but if you give an analogy of somebody who has a nuclear weapon with him trying to bomb my little Gambia, of course I have the right to steal it from him. That doesn't negate.
Then you believe in moral absolutism if you say that is right.
You have to hold a position in which you could actually demonstrate to me that the very thing that guy was doing is for the benefit of humanity and for the benefit.
No, but we don't. But let's not focus on what he was doing. Let's focus on stealing, right?
Can I just interrupt a little bit, because you'll be concluding soon. As the topic is fire, but then time as well, you'll be concluding soon. As just one observation, before I give you the chance to then conclude, is that the origin of morality in itself, one would argue that it is an intrinsic phenomenon which it has been placed within an individual by God, as he is arguing, and one would also argue that it is an acquired phenomenon, as it also focuses on the aspect of a person being, the bio, the psycho, and the social being, you understand. So these are, to me, it actually gives an idea that there are actually points where the two are converging, and at the same time they then become tangent. One goes to this side and the other one to this side. So I'm not, that is something which I had also observed. So I'm giving it to you to just close out the show.
Really, today's topic was really intense, guys. I still feel like there's more to say. I still feel like there's more to be said all day long. I still had a lot of points to really say, but
I know you.
Yeah. But honestly, we'll just have to conclude the show.
Yeah.
How did you find today's show?
Yeah, this was a hard debate between you and Abdullah. Like, I was like, do I? Okay, but I like how you guys were challenging the whole conversation in terms of this and that. I learned something from him actually. And even though I might not agree completely with your view about it, there's so much I took in. And I actually analyzed what you were saying, and I like that. And with you too, girl, like I get everything that you're saying, and I stand with you. But there are certain contradictions that we, of the relative morality, we have. But then this is broad, guys. So
it's a broad thing. There are different dimensions.
But I still wanna leave it at this because I didn't actually finish. I'm just gonna leave it at this because I feel like I didn't.
I know exactly where you're heading to. Ask whether God can change his absolute.
No. That's what I'm saying. I have to conclude this because I feel like I left it in suspension.
Right.
Yes, because actually, what I wanted to take it to the fact that you consider murder as one of those aspects that are absolutely morally wrong. And then you say God is always right, but we see the same God committing what you call absolutely morally incorrect, which is murder through flooding the whole thing.
How did you come to that knowledge? Through the Bible. So that will take us to the biblical.
That's what I'm saying.
We're not going to the biblical.
We can't go to that, but let me conclude this with what I had already started, and we'll leave this.
Yes, girl.
To another day. I don't know if we're going to continue with this topic or we have to just.
It's a lot of dimensions.
What I can just say is that we have left the people wondering, is morality indeed subjective or is it objective? So we have really opened a platform for conversation about this. I mean, the conversation does not end up here. It goes on, in other platforms.
Yeah, just for me to say my final, my final words. To those people out there that are in the search for, in the pursuit of the truth, know this for sure. And I always use this. Moral subjectivism is self-contradictory because you either have to believe that is by choice that we know truth, or truth is by mere taste or opinion. And if you do believe that to be objectively true, then that means, after all, there is no subjectivism in terms of truth. If you do believe that is subjective, that's very statement that truth is by our mere taste and opinion, that it is what subjective, then why are you debating people after all? Because you actually believe they ought to believe in what you are saying. So it's very self-contradictory.
I'm playing good with words.
We thank him for coming to the show.
It was really nice having you here. Hope to have you on the next topic to keep this going. Yeah.
Thank you for inviting.
That's it for today, guys. We hope you enjoyed this and question yourself more about morality. Thank you.